Joining us now, my friend Haley Barbour, former governor of Mississippi and former chairman of the Republican National Committee. He joins us now. Governor Barbour, how are you, sir?
Hey, Laura, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. First of all, I loved seeing how you voted for Newt in Mississippi, and we thought you would vote for Newt. We had an inside, kind of pool here at the office.
Well, Newt and I have been friends a long time, since the 1970s, and of course, when I was chairman of the Republican National Committee, he was the first Southern Republican Speaker of the House. And we worked together a lot, and I didn't endorse anybody. You mentioned earlier you liked all these guys. I like all of them too. I've known three of them pretty well over my career, but sometimes politics ought to be about friendship, and that's what that vote was about for Marsh and me.
Well, when you heard Newt last night and you saw the results, what was going through your mind about the Republicans and moving forward to Tampa? Were you kind of on that same page that at some point fairly soon, if things don't dramatically change for Newt, then it might be time for him to move on or move toward Romney?
Well, it really is not a proper role for somebody like me to say somebody ought to get out or somebody ought to do this or do that. Those are decisions they got to make. As you know, this is a hard thing to do, to run for president. It is all consuming, and so I'm very, very reticent to say that. The real question is, Romney's victory was a big victory in an important state. Is it going to now lead to coalescence around him? We've seen a couple of times when that could have happened after Florida, after Super Tuesday, and it didn't. He wasn't able to achieve that. This is another opportunity for him to use this victory to pull the party together around him, and the primary voters got to decide that, Laura. One of the things that I used to try to pride myself on when I was chairman of the RNC, you got to trust the voters. And trust the voters to come to the right decision at the right time. This has been a messy process. It's been, sometimes I know people want to pull their hair out. It hasn't been particularly productive because any minute that we're not talking about Obama's policies and the failed results of those policies, we're not talking about our best argument. And so much of the primary contest hasn't been focused on Obama's failed policies. So that's not our most productive use of time, but that's going to come, and the voters are going to be the ones who are going to decide. It's not going to be the wise men, because they're not any wise men.
Where are the? I've always hated the wise. We need the wise men. As far as I could tell, the wise men didn't secure our borders. They didn't see the housing bubble coming. They didn't see all the difficulty it would have in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. The wise men screwed up a lot of stuff along the way, in my mind.
Well, in political parties, particularly, there really are no wise men. We're a bottom-up party, and we're better when we're a bottom-up party, not a top-down party. Plus, as I told somebody, how can you have a brokered convention in a smoke-filled room? Nobody smokes anymore.
Oh, that's such a bummer, isn't it? I know. I mean, all those old romantic days of politics when the doors were closed, you open them and all that smoke comes out, and So here's
called history. That's the past.
Exactly.
We won't see that again.
Yeah. Here's my question about Newt, and then I want to move to Santorum. What does Newt bring to the race that perhaps Romney can learn from? Is there something there that Romney could see and say, I need to do a little bit more of this? And maybe the same with Santorum. What would it be?
I think at times Newt has done better than the others of focusing the campaign on Obama. If this is a referendum on Obama's policies, he's going to lose. And Romney has occasionally done that, but I think Newt, more than the others, has tried, when he's got the microphone, to focus on the terrible energy policy of this administration, the exploding deficits and debt of this administration, the expenditures of money for no good purpose, to achieve nothing. I mean, we have a we have a recovery today that is very hard to tell the difference between the recovery and the recession. You know, there's the news media, the liberal media elite wants you to think, boy, the economy is just so much better, where employment's going up. You know, it reminds me of an old country song when I was growing up, Laura. I don't remember the name of the song, but the lyrics were, "I've been down so long, it looks like up to me now." and that's that's a lot of this argument. Well, we created 270,000 jobs last month. Well, I remember the last deep recession in 1983. We were creating 700,000 jobs a month, and the size of the workforce was 112 million, where today the size of the workforce is 153 million. So just look at that relatively, and it was not just 2 or 3 times as many jobs as we're doing today. This is hopefully things are getting better, and employment is going up a little bit. But let me just cite this statistic for you. Last month, 58.6% of all adult Americans had a job. Except for the Obama administration, that is the lowest percentage of Americans employed since 1983. And they're bragging about it.
Well, change you can believe in. Well, this is what Mitt Romney said a few days ago on the trail in Illinois.
I believe the economy is coming back, by the way. We'll see what happens. It's had ups and downs. I think it's finally coming back.
Well, is that the smart way to go about this? I mean, he went on to say there are challenges and so forth, and it could have been recovering faster, given the policies of Obama are bad, so we're not coming out of this as fast as we'd like. But why even accept the framework of their argument?
Well, I don't think we want to be seen as hoping the economy's going to be worse. I mean, we all hope the economy's going to get better, and we need the economy to get better.
Right,
and
but presidential. Right, go ahead.
You know, I said just to you a second ago before you played that clip, employment is getting a little better. It's not getting a lot better. It is getting a little better. We shouldn't seem like we're denying that. The truth's always the right answer.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's a harder argument to make when you frame when the argument is framed, and you pointed out Gingrich's strength here, and I think this is maybe where Romney can learn a little bit. There are some signs of improvement on the horizon, but what he's seeing out there when he talks to these folks, especially in the middle of the country, in a lot of these southern states, people are really hurting. And so the happy talk about the economy, of course everybody hopes the economy gets better, but we need a reform-minded, pragmatic approach to governance, which is not here, and the stewardship of our economy is absent. And so I wouldn't accept any of the Democrat talking points on this. I think it's a mistake.
Well, the main point that you talk about, and it is the main thing, you know, Fred Smith, my fellow Mississippian, who's the founder and CEO of FedEx, says the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Mm-hmm. And the main thing here is Obama's policies have made it harder to create jobs. Obama's policies have made it harder for the economy to grow. And when his Federal Reserve Board now repeatedly says they're going to have to keep interest rates at virtually zero for 2 more years, I mean, that is just a statement that they don't think the economy's going to get enough better, so that we're going to have to keep interest rates at zero with all the down the road risk that holds for inflation and interest rates. But they don't think the economy's getting enough better.
Well, they're fresh out of ideas, aren't they, Haley? They've tried everything. They've tried everything over at the Federal Reserve. They pumped the money into the economy. We've borrowed hundreds of billions of dollars from China and many other countries. We've tried the stimulus. We've done some green energy investments. We've done all this stuff. And guess what? The speed of any recovery is not enough. It is not enough. That's it.
And largely because the policies you talked about have made it harder.
Yep.
They are bad for the economy. They are bad for job creation. How do you expect employers to hire more people when the president says, I want the largest tax increase in American history that's going to fall on primarily employers.
Job creators.
Now, how do you decide I'm going to hire more people when the government wants to take my share of $1.5 trillion of new taxes that's going to fall on employers? Or how does the employer hire more people? Doesn't even know what his obligations or costs are going to be for his employees' health care because of Obamacare. You can just go down the list of everything Obama brags about. Makes it harder to create jobs and grow the economy.
Well, Haley, as former head of the RNC, I have a tactical question for you.
Okay.
We have a number of interesting races now popping up, and one of them is in New York. And you and I have not talked about this race before, but you know Kirsten Gillibrand, right? You know who she is,
Sure.
obviously.
I know she is, sure.
Yeah, she's voted now the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate, tied with Bernie Sanders, okay, by the National Journal. They rank all sorts of votes and statements. So she is up for re-election. She won that special election after Hillary became Secretary of State. Now, the Republicans have a chance to nominate a female conservative, former law clerk to Justice Thomas, somebody who is a former partner at Kirkland and Ellis, went to Harvard and Northwestern Law School, just brilliant person. Her name is Wendy Long. She happens to be someone who's been a 30-year friend of mine. Do you think that would be a sensible type of candidate to put up against Kirsten Gillibrand in the narrative of the War on Women year? Aren't those the types of candidates we should be looking at and the RNC should be supporting, not writing off, even in a state like New York?
Well, I don't know her, Laura, but she sounds like exactly the kind of person we ought to be trying to get to run for office. And that isn't a seat that we should write off. There are a lot of people that would have written off Weiner's seat, which we won in a special election in New York 9. I am not someone who writes off stuff. When I was chairman of the RNC, people wanted to write off Pete Wilson's reelection as governor of California. He was down 20 points a year before the election. Of course, he ended up getting reelected in double digits. And I had to explain to people, argue with people, we're not going to write that seat off just because California hadn't been good for us lately. We should not write off a seat in New York if we got a first-rate candidate. I will say one thing about whoever gets to be our nominee. In New York, they had a very bad situation, you remember, in a special election, because a handful of people picked the nominee. We need a process where we have maximum participation by the Republican voters of New York or any other state to pick our nominee, and we will almost always have a stronger candidate.
Well, let me tell
you. Sometimes you have a fluke candidate that messes you up, but you got to trust the voters. And so have more people participate.
Yeah, bingo. Well, I saw it up close. I was up at that GOP nominating contest in Rochester last week. Wendy got 47.2% of the vote. Congressman Bob Turner is about to be redistricted out of that special election seat. He got 25% barely because he got last-minute arm twisting. And Wendy almost had the percentage necessary to avoid a primary. She won the unanimous endorsement yesterday, the day before, from the Conservative Party, Haley. But that's the kind of candidate we need to broaden this Republican base, whether she could beat Gillibrand or not, and I think she can. But that's the kind of candidate we need. We cannot go back to the same old party bosses deciding who's going to be the nominee. And so I just wanted your opinion on that because I respect your opinion and
I wish I
of
was
the RNC.
Better informed, but the point you make is the right point. The broader participation yields better candidates and better chances in November.
Haley Barbour from Mississippi, former governor. Haley, thanks for your perspective on all these issues. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week.
Hey, Laura, take care. Thanks for having me.
All right.